first time we saw her, she was in full rabbinical beard in the opening breathtaking moments of Tony Kushner's Angels in America. The next time, she was completely bald and taking on the horrific miracles of life and death in Margaret Edson's Wit. Both plays, not incidentally, won Pulitzer Prizes. Welcome to Women in Theater. I'm Linda Weiner, theater critic and arts columnist of Newsday, and our guest is Kathleen Chalfant, who is very smart and extremely wise, and who makes great choices and great theater, giving lie to the idea that you can make a killing in the theater, but you can't make a life. Now, this is your moment when you say, what do you mean the first time you saw me, I was in Angels in America? Now you say, yeah. I had a career before that.
Yes, I did.
Yeah.
I did. I thought I was doing fine. And then the most wonderful afternoon of my life happened when Tony Kushner walked by. We met on the Upper West Side, and he said, you know, there's a play I'm doing. There's some stuff I want you to do. And I said, oh, sure, Tony, fine, yeah. And that was in 1987, I think, or maybe early 1988. Because the whole thing, I was in, when the next part of the story happened, I was in Larry Kramer's Just Say No, yeah, playing Nancy Reagan. They wouldn't have been able to show that on CBS, but in any case, I was yes, playing Nancy Reagan.
And Just Say No was before Angels in America.
Was before. It was, yes, it was in the fall of 1988.
Right, of course. And that was like the first, oh my God, AIDS play.
No, Just Say No was Larry's.
Oh, Larry Kramer's second play. I'm so sorry.
The second play, his farce about
yes,
Ronald Reagan and Nancy Reagan.
I did see you. Take all that back. Okay, go ahead.
So while Just Say No was going on, I got a call from Tony saying, oh, you know that play? We're going to do a reading of it at the New York Theater Workshop, and can you do it? And I went, and I didn't have time to look at the play beforehand.
Well, did it arrive?
Yes. It was enormous, and even then there wasn't all of it. So we were just reading parts of Millennium Approaches. And Tony said, so I want you to be the rabbi and the doctor and the Mormon mother and Ethel Rosenberg. And then we started. And the first, you know, the play opens with the rabbi. And I opened my mouth and the rabbi came out, which you might have thought was odd for an Episcopalian person, but he came right out. And he was always there, the Rebbe, and still, he's still inside. And
Erica, this is a Jewish name. The play's all in my head.
It's
yes,
just, you know, it's just astounding. And it was only about 8 years later that I realized where the rabbi came from. And my husband and I were in our kitchen listening to one of those old radio programs, and a Jack Benny show came on. And there was Mr. Kitzel. And I realized that when I was a little kid, Mr. Kitzel got inside me and he came out for the rabbi. So we did this reading, which was extraordinary.
From the first day.
Oh, you knew.
It was clear.
You knew.
Yeah.
It was, I mean, to speak Tony's words is like playing Mozart. They are, besides all the other things, they are ravishingly beautiful. And that's one of the things I've always thought about Angels in America, that it is, as an object, a beautiful thing.
I remember that you pointed out one time that it's not just that Tony writes beautiful women's characters, but he makes women who are authority figures.
Yes.
Because each one of these women was really strong. And then also the rabbi. Sorry, the rabbi.
And the rabbi and the doctor.
Yes, and the doctor.
I love the doctor.
You said Henry, you dropped the name Henry, so we have to say Henry Chalfant, your husband,
yes,
and college sweetheart.
Yes, actually, he was actually my college sweetheart. We were both studying Greek at Stanford.
Naturally.
And I went through pretty quickly, and Henry was going through slowly. Otherwise, we wouldn't have met, which would have been a bad thing. But we did. We met, and we were married I graduated in the Christmas of 1965, and we were married in November of 1966 when I was 21. And we're still married, and I'm not 21 anymore.
Yeah, it's all right. 21 wasn't so hot.
No, it wasn't,
No.
actually.
And he's a
Things are getting
documentary
better.
filmmaker.
He's a documentary filmmaker and kind of the father of hip-hop culture. He's the chronicler of graffiti. He's most known for. He's done 2 books, which are the kind of texts of graffiti, spray can art and subway art. And he was the producer and, I don't know, the person who brought together the elements of the movie Style Wars, which was made by our friend Tony Silver.
And you have a home in Greenwich Village. This is I'm following up on the "and she has a life."
Right.
You have a home in Greenwich Village. You have 2 children who are both in the theater or in the arts.
In the arts, I know we tried. There
Yeah.
was nothing to be done.
Uh-huh.
They didn't learn any lessons from the parents.
Now, when you started in WIT, I remember we have a mutual friend, and there was a birthday party, and I was nervous because there's an actress here that I have to review, so I don't even want to talk to her. I don't even want to talk to her. But I remember that you had said that you were about to go to Long Wharf Theater, and you had to shave your head, and you were going to have to be naked.
Yeah.
So you didn't want lunch. Now,
It's true, I remember that.
now that went on. You went to Long Wharf. You were in Margaret Edson's Wit, playing this extraordinary woman who's a John Donne scholar, unsentimental, who has to go through all of these humiliating and strangely uplifting experiences. Really a horrific play. How did you drag yourself through that every single night?
Well, it's a very interesting thing about Wit. Wit was harder to watch than to do because for the character, for Vivian, the end of the play is triumphant. And I think if the play had ended somewhere earlier, if it had ended during the Code Blue scene or something, it would have been much more difficult to go through. At the moment, I'm beginning to do a play made by Fred Wiseman, a documentary filmmaker, about a Ukrainian Jewish doctor who is killed in the Ukraine in 1941, and it ends just before she's about to be taken out with the whole population of the town into the forest and shot. And I suspect that this is going to be a very difficult play to do for that reason, because that's where it ends. Whereas in Wit, Vivian was the recipient of grace. And I think that the thing that made our production of Wit so extraordinary was its director, Derek Anson Jones, who all during the time that we were working on the play was dying because he had HIV. He didn't tell anyone except his lover, the extraordinary Dennis O'Hare. And he never, ever mentioned it during the making of the play. But mortality was something immediately real to him, we discovered. And he died on the day that the play opened in Los Angeles, when we finally went to the Geffen Playhouse. And I think Derek understood not only what the struggle of the play was, but understood the end of the play.
And your brother had cancer all during the time
And
that you were
yes,
in the play. Yes.
Yes. My brother, my brother was diagnosed with cancer in, I think, March of the year that I was given Wit, that Derek gave me wit, and my brother came to visit us, and I gave him the play to read, and he was my older brother, 14 years older, and my mentor. And he read the play, and because I said, I want to know if this is true to your experience so far. And he came back with tears streaming down his face, and he said, yes, it's true. And he said, if anyone ever asks you to play that part, you better do it. So he was right.
You had no choice.
And he saw it at the Long Wharf. He died, there was a year between the production at the Long Wharf and when we came to New York, and he died in Easter of that year, on April 17th of that year.
What a time. What a time. Yes. I mean, we in the audience thought we were going through a lot. I know when I go to review a play, I really, really possibly childishly try not to have visible emotions, you know. I'm not up there clapping and screaming and laughing, you know. And so
because we're all standing on the stage, so what's she doing?
Yeah, that's right. Is someone laughing there?
Did she laugh? Did they smile?
Yeah, did they laugh? But I sat there during the whole thing and walked out on the street, and I realized that the entire front of my sweater was soaking wet because I had been sobbing, but like trying not to look like I was sobbing, because after all, you know, who would want to be a member of the audience and be a normal person? And it happened to me every time I saw you in it. These choices that you have been able to make in your life, in your career. I mean, you did soaps, right? I mean, you've done soaps. But come on, the movies are Tim Robbins movies, and you know, I keep seeing you in Law and Order, all the good stuff, all the things I like. Are you The Guardian, this TV show? You're in it now. Still,
yeah,
it's still going on.
I'm recurring less this season, but I was in about every other one for the first 2 seasons.
What made you decide to hook into a series semi-permanently like that?
Well, it was I finished Wit, and I thought that it might be nice to make a kind of nest egg. And it was an accident. I would like to say that I've chosen all these things in this wonderful way, but I have been extraordinarily lucky in my career. My very first work of any importance in New York was Jules Feiffer's Hold Me. So that's not a bad place to start. So I forget, I think I was in Los Angeles thinking, you know, going to Los Angeles the way we all do, thinking, oh, well, maybe somebody will have me in the movies or the television and I can make some money. And I was asked to audition for The Guardian by Michael Pressman, who is a filmmaker and a television producer. He works a lot with David Kelly and all like that. And he'd seen Wit, and I was sort of on his list. And I found out later that I was the first person they saw for this part. And I thought, I didn't think I was ever going to get it, because I thought that it was the part that they could do all their, anyone could play the part. It could be, because it was a social worker. So any sort of niche they wanted to fill, they could do. A late 50-ish white woman
chick. They didn't need a white chick for this, yeah.
Seem like that was going to be necessarily the person that they would put in there, though I do understand now that getting any kind of part on television after you're 55 is a form of affirmative action. So that was good. I was pleased. So it happened, and then a long time passed. And then I heard that I was in the pilot. But I didn't have to do all those scary things that you have to do for a television series. Go and sign contracts and sign your life away for 7 years and all like that. That didn't happen. I just was in the pilot and did the pilot. And then it was picked up at the very time that I was supposed to go and do the Cherry Orchard at the Long Wharf and do a series of Tennessee Williams plays, which were kind of the beginning of the thing that's happened now. They were short. I was going to do 2 of the short plays they're doing in
10 by 10. 8 by 10?
8 by 10 they're doing now. Okay. So the television series came, and I thought, well, I can't do it, you know, do the Cherry Orchard, which I've never done, and then I have this other thing, and they were asking me to sign a contract, and I said, look, I can't sign this contract because I have these other commitments, and I'm not available from this time to this time, or again at Christmas time. So they said, oh, and then in between the time they were going, oh, and they called me back, the play at the Cherry Orchard collapsed at the Long Wharf. I withdrew. It was a very complicated issue.
Yes.
And so they called back and said, okay, here's the deal, and you have to move to California. And I said, oh, no, I mean, I could do it, but I don't want to really move to California. So they said, oh, all right. And then they called me again and they said, well, okay, we'll have you recur. And so I was incredibly lucky because I got all the good things about the TV and not any of the bad things. I also got paid about a third as much as everybody else, but it was worth it to me to be able to live in New York and go to California when I needed to do it. And it's a wonderfully written TV show, and she's a great character.
This is, I went to a panel at Columbia that you were on, and about, you know, is theater dead? One of our,
yes, right.
one of our happy little topics. And you brought something so clear to everyone's attention. Everyone always says, well, you know, you have to do TV to make money. Can you tell us, like, the difference between what you were making 8 performances a week off Broadway compared to what you make when you fly out there for 10 minutes?
8 performances a week off Broadway in the last show I did, which was Talking Heads, for a long, I forget what I got. I think we got $1,000 a week. And then we got a big raise, and then we got $2,500 a week. In The Guardian, and I was making nothing. I started out making $7,500 an episode, which is
nice.
Day and a half's work, maybe.
It's a nice pocket change.
And then the next year, $10,000, and now $12,500 to show up.
So how can people do the theater? No,
Well,
how do they compete? I mean,
people, I mean, what happens all the time is that people do film and television in order to be able to work in the theater, because $1,000 a week or $2,500 a week is a lot of money in the institutional theaters. Pay from $280 a week at you know, important theaters like the, I don't know, I don't want to slander anybody, but about that, you know, at the level of the Vineyard and CSC and all like that, it's under, I think it may be maybe up to $300 a week now.
It's pathetic.
At Lincoln Center, it's off Broadway scale at the Mitzi and Broadway scale upstairs. Yeah. So it isn't very much money, and you can't. What you can perfectly, one person can perfectly well manage. What you can't do is have a decent life, which is to say, have a family. It's particularly difficult for men, because though now almost in most families both parents work, but it's very difficult. So the theater, I mean the movies and television are because the people who work in the theater are the greatest subsidizers of the art form. And
I always think that Law and Order must be like a Ford Foundation grant or something.
Law and Order is
for the theater.
It's absolutely great, and now there are 3 of them.
Yeah.
And it's, you know, it's good writing, and you get to work with everybody you know. Yeah. It's difficult. If there were more television in New York, it would be better. As it is, it's a long commute, and you can do it. If you sign a contract, a series contract, it means that you can't it's very difficult to work in the theater. You have to make huge arrangements about what day of the week they shoot and all like that. But there's a long hiatus. It's like, you know, summer vacation.
Teaching school.
Yes.
Yeah.
So you get off
Yeah.
from the beginning-ish of April sometimes to the middle-ish of July.
Yeah. It's breaking my heart that you are not, your performances in Angels in America and in Wit are not in the HBO series adaptations. You don't have to say anything about it. I'll just say that I know that this happens all the time, that the people who create the role, the artists who create the roles, then are, you know, not used, and Mitzi Gaynor gets cast or something. This was not a Mitzi Gaynor problem, but still, it's so destructive to the talent that does, to the true believers who stay and do this work, to then get passed over. And you can comment on that, or we can just let it go.
Well, I can. It is the way of the profession, in a way. And as you say, it's happened to everybody. You know, Julie Andrews didn't get the part. So you know, you find yourself in great company. The argument for it is that the work finds a wider audience. You know, the argument is that you couldn't make it with someone that isn't well known. It's difficult. It's not. I'm pleased that the play I'm doing now, The Last Letter, they've already made the movie.
No
so
disappointments here, right?
Doesn't arise.
Okay.
The wonderful French actress Kathleen Chalfant is in the movie. So it's okay.
We both are old enough to have seen the attitudes towards the arts and funding change quite a bit. There was a time when it looked like, from above, people were thinking that the arts were a pretty terrific thing. Mm-hmm. I know that you're very active in a number of political groups. Yeah. And I see, what are you wearing?
I'm wearing, this is
our prop.
This is our prop. I brought this. This
Yes.
is a Dove of Peace, the women's Dove of Peace, which I got because I went with a human rights group called Madre. I've been to the Middle East with Madre twice. The first time was to Lebanon after the UN camp at Qana was destroyed or burnt, you know, hit. And then I went last Christmas, actually, right around Christmas time, with my, oh no, that's true. I went the first time with Madre, and this last time I went with Eve Ensler.
Eve Ensler.
Eve Ensler, and
Vagina Monologues.
Who wrote the Vagina Monologues with Jane Fonda. Yeah. And we went to Israel and Palestine under the auspices of the Jerusalem Connection, which is a group of Israeli and Palestinian women who have been continuing to try to work for peace and dialogue through these most terrible times.
And you belong to something called Theaters Against War. And you were an original signer on the Not in My Name. So you've been really out there in addition to your day job.
Well, I've been there. There are other people who have been much more visible. But this has been seems to me a time when you have to say what you believe. Because I think that if we all say what we believe, and this is true of people who don't even believe what I believe, we must all say what we believe so that the possibility of saying it remains alive. I just was reminded of this because the other night we went to see Gore Vidal in Dalton Trumbo, in Trumbo, yes. Which I thought of as a kind of perfect storm of right thinking,
yes.
If you like. And it brought back so clearly how easy it is for us to let the rights of free expression slip away from us in an atmosphere of fear.
Yeah.
And we mustn't do that. And these people, the people from the Jerusalem Connection reminded me of how much courage it can take when things get much worse than they are here.
When you were growing up, going back to you.
In California.
In California. Now, both in LA and in Northern California.
Well, actually, I was born in 1945, right at the end of the Second World War. And for that reason, sort of born in San Francisco by accident, I guess, if you think you need both your parents to be there. My mother had come there and ran a boarding house. And my father was the secretary of the Coast Guard Commandant. And his job was to find places, billets for people to stay. And so he met my mother, and my mother was born in England, but she'd been here most of her life. So my mother and grandmother ran this boarding house, and my father, who looked really good in the uniform, came and met my mother, and they fell in love. And
so did you grow up in the boarding house?
I grew up in, I was born in a boarding house in 1945, because they still had a boarding house. And by the end of the war, my father was an officer in the Coast Guard. And so, I don't know what happened. Right after the war, he was reassigned, and we went to live in Hawaii when I was 2 or 3. And then we came back, and then somehow he left the Coast Guard and became a master sergeant in the Air Force. And we went back to Hawaii again. So during that period, my family didn't have boarding houses or anything, any business like that. And so then he got out of the service, and my family bought a motel in North Sacramento, California. So we went there. And then from the 6th grade until I graduated, I think I graduated from Stanford, my parents owned a huge boarding house in East Oakland, California.
And so naturally from there you went to major in Greek.
Absolutely.
Yeah, absolutely.
No question.
Absolutely. Our time is up, and I can't believe it, but there was one quote from you that I think we all, ought to have on samplers at all of our theaters. That's, that you were talking about wit, and you said that this play shows the futility of condescending to an audience.
Yes.
Yes, you said that.
Yes, I said that, and yes, I believe it. The greatest successes I've had, as well as the most satisfaction, have been from those plays that everyone said were much too difficult to ever find a popular venue. And obviously the first was Angels in America. I've done a play called Nine Armenians, yes, which was fairly difficult. Wit, and both Wit and Angels in America were not only extraordinary plays, but extraordinarily popular and have gone into the culture.
And extraordinarily dangerous.
And very dangerous.
Very dangerous. I can't believe we have to go, but Kathleen Chalfant, thank you so much for being here. And thank you for being here. On behalf of the League of Professional Theater Women, I'm Linda Weiner, and this has been Women in Theater.